if that's something that this group is interested in, then yeah, we would say yes, but we also don't want to, waste your time, so.
Well, I mean, in theory, it has something to do with state solid waste management plan, all that kind of good stuff. So maybe we can put that on the agenda as you put that together.
Okay.
It's probably after you're supposed to get it done.
Oh, no, we can, that may would be great, we can do a June effective date, just like with the solid waste rules. That's just helpful to know, so because once I hit the button and final file, it's hard to change that date. So if I have it in mind, hey, we're gonna be talking in May, then I can.
Okay. Any other questions? April, early happy birthday are in order for April.
Thank you. An attempt to share my presentation. Oh, that's funny. It's not showing on here, but it's up there. So, hey, everybody. Good to see you. I'm glad to be in person. I planned to come last time, but it was really cold and Ernie convinced me I didn't need to make that 10-minute walk when it was 20 degrees outside. So it was much more pleasant today, except for the wind. So we see you all. So big news, I guess, is, the grants. We did announce the grants. Again, just going over what we for the 2024 round. We received 177 applications, just under $10 million. We were kind of hoping we'd reach that $10 million point, but we got close. I mean, we didn't have 10 million to spend, so I guess that would have been cruel of us to want more applications that we couldn't fund. But this is what we received, and then we got approval and made awards last week. So we ended up funding 159 of that 177 for just under $7 million. So this is kind of where it shook out as far as funding of the different types of projects. We're excited to see extra market development this year, but a lot of it, we had 3 that withdrew before we even scored them. And then we had a few that were just not quality applications, had some permitting online compliance type issues. So we're hoping, we always offer, we kind of think about that. How do we get better applications? We always are getting applications that aren't that great. We do offer draft reviews. We tell everyone, if you get it to us 2 weeks ahead, we're going to look it over. We will give you feedback. A lot of these market developments we don't see until they come in, and then it's not great applications. So, that's something we want to work on, because I know it's been questioned before why we don't do more market development. It's not because we don't want to. We just, we can't fund bad projects even if we have money to do it. We did spend under the spending authority that we had available this year, but we have some other things that we're thinking of maybe doing with that money. Hopefully still spending all of the money that we have available this year. Just couldn't justify awarding grants to projects that weren't good enough to be awarded. So that's where we are. So currently we're getting out. Marie is super busy with grant agreements, and Carrie is doing purchase orders, and so they're very busy getting everything set up to get everyone those initial payments and the grant agreements signed, because the projects do begin April 1st. We did change the timeline. I know we talked to you guys before about that the timeline got moved up this year. We did see quite a few more applications for events and things that are happening in April and May that we can fund now, which is exciting. That was one of the reasons we did it. The other is to get all of this fiscal stuff out of the way before the end of the fiscal year, so that we could get all the payments and everything processed before the state shutdown that happens like mid-June. So far that seemed good. We only had a handful of people that didn't know of the timeline change and missed out. So hopefully their projects can wait until next year, and we can still do those. So right now we actually already started with IT working on updating our application for 2025. So we don't take a break at all. We've already had our first meeting to talk about things that we might want to do to update the program for this year. We are looking at expanding the source reduction, which was just water bottles before, but now adding other things that could eliminate single-use disposable items like hand dryers and dishwashers. Dishwashers in schools, we have gotten lots of questions about that in the past. A lot of schools are now using styrofoam trays. It's horrible. So if we could get them back to using dishwashers, we could pay for those, and then they could reuse trays. So we're going to expand that category. We're also looking at encouraging more diversion with organics by doing food rescue and food recovery type activities under the program to kind of move up the hierarchy with organics and see if we can't help increase that as well. And looking at some other things. So if there's any thoughts, any suggestions as to what we could do for 25 to make the program better, now would be the time to let us know about that before we get too deep into the IT process. So that's my grant update. Did want to remind everyone about the Encouraging Environmental Excellence Award Program. We are accepting applications for the 2024 award class through April 30th. Again, we have 3 different categories for that. The Encouraging Environmental Excellence is kind of our original classic program. That's for businesses, nonprofits, colleges and universities, other types of organizations that are going, again, above and beyond environmental compliance and being in sustainability and environmental stewardship in their communities. The Encouraging Environmental Excellence in Communities is for publicly owned buildings that are, going above and beyond. So cities, counties, townships, and then units within them. I think we originally created this for wastewater treatment plants that were doing upgrades and wanted to be recognized. So it could be any unit of, any building within the city or the organization or the community as a whole. And then the Encouraging Environmental Excellence in Education is for K through 12 schools. So if you've got kids in schools and schools are doing good stuff, and if the teachers have time to fill out an application, we would love to award them Encouraging Environmental Excellence Award. And then just one other thing, we are updating the recycling directory. That's been kind of a static thing that we've had. We haven't really had time to devote to it. Now that I'm fully staffed, I have staff that is reaching out to the solid waste management districts, asking if they have updates, reaching out to everyone else that's listed on there and making sure that all of those listings are up to date. We've added a couple categories. We added boat shrink wrap recently because we work with there's a shrink wrap working group through the Clean Marinas program, and they're trying to identify ways to get rid of this. We've added that to the directory now so that people that are looking for ways to recycle it have access to that. And so again, if there's any thoughts on things that we can do to update that and help keep that current and usable to people, feel free to reach out to me on that as well. That's all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for April? Oh, you did get a full staff.
I do have a full staff.
How about that?
It's fantastic. I tell them all nobody can leave.
All right. Awesome programs. We'll hear more about them, I'm sure. Thank you, April.
Next up on the agenda, we have Elizabeth Brown, who's the Director of Materials Management Division of Michigan's Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. Michigan just recently made some major changes to their solid waste law. We attended some virtual webinars that they had done, and since we're doing the state plan update, it seemed a good time to have Elizabeth come and tell us what's going on. So Elizabeth, are you on?
I am.
Thank you for joining us today, Elizabeth. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
if I remember
Appreciate
correctly,
the invite.
You wanted us to run your presentation, is that right?
Yes, please.
We're just going to pull it up here and then we'll be ready.
Perfect.
Okay, Elizabeth, can you see that on your screen?
Yes, I can. It's perfect.
Okay. Just tell us when you want us to forward.
Okay, will do. Again, I'm Liz Brown. I'm the Director of the Materials Management Division within the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, or as we're known, EGLE. And just real quick, a little background about our division. We have both regulatory programs and non-regulatory programs. Our regulatory programs are for hazardous waste, solid waste, medical waste, electronic waste, scrap tires, and we have our radiological protection program for the state of Michigan within our division. And for those programs, we run the full program. We do the authorizations, the inspections, compliance and enforcement, and then also oversee any remediation that's needed. And then in the sustainability arena, we have recycling, pollution prevention, and we also house the state's energy office within our division. So next, that's just a quick overview. And then, as you heard, we have done quite a sea change to our solid waste regulation or statute, excuse me. It was an 8-bill package of over 250 pages with all the amendments, but the solid waste policy is what was the driving factor for all the decisions that were made. We always reflected back to the policy. And these slides will be made available to you, so hopefully people don't feel the need to take a lot of notes. And I also have links to most of the things I'll be talking about within it. So just real quick, again, to avoid the generation, utilize the waste whenever possible. And if it needs to be disposed, assure that it's disposed properly. Recognizing that there are interrelationships as it is dealing with waste, and also that there are distinct roles and responsibilities. And that was a huge part of our discussions with the stakeholders, was that this was not a department or state-run effort. It was very much a joint effort amongst all the different aspects. We had up to 70 stakeholders in this process, so it was very inclusive. And we also recognize that there's short and long-term costs and benefits with management of solid waste. So next, based on that updated policy, or the updated policy was also associated with 2 efforts that the state undertook simultaneously. So next slide, please. The first was that at the time, Governor Snyder created a recycling council and appointed the council members to that. And at the same time, the division was also holding a solid waste and sustainability advisory panel group to talk about the rest of the solid waste program in addition to the recycling. And both reports came out the same day, and you can find them on our website as indicated below. But those 2 reports were what the basis for doing all of the changes to the statute. And they identified 5 priority areas. And so one was to update the solid waste law, which again we did, to get residents more involved in recycling, to have a funding model to assure success, to grow markets, and to have the state be a leader for the public to see. And so those were the things that we used to model our efforts to get the statute amended, excuse me. So next, just real quick, I'll go through. We had traditionally in the program regulated processing and transfer facilities, incinerators, and landfills. With the changes to the amendments, we added what we call materials utilization facilities. So these are your MRFs, your compost facilities, anaerobic digesters. And then we included a category of innovative technology for waste utilization. We didn't have any specific ideas for that category, but every once in a while somebody would come to us and say, hey, we want to try this. And the only option we had for them was to fully regulate them under a construction permit and operating license. So this was a way to allow some of those potential opportunities to happen with an easier mechanism. And then waste diversion centers. And I'm putting that in just so you understand that we brought all of these facilities in under some level of regulation so that we could get better data and allow the counties to better plan by knowing where all these facilities were. So next, just a real quick 3 slides to talk about the benefits of the changes. first to individuals, and that they would have more recycling opportunities available to them. Because there would be more opportunities for recycling, there would also be the potential for more jobs. And also that their facilities would get more oversight at the state level rather than hoping that the locals had some way to manage facilities that got a little out of hand. So next is benefits to local governments. Traditionally, the counties had to have in their solid waste management plan import and export agreements. So you couldn't import waste to another county in Michigan unless both the import and exporting county had an agreement to allow that to happen. And so that very much limited what folks could do if they weren't interested in using their local landfill. The counties won't have to worry as much about assuring that there's disposal capacity within their borders, again, because of the import-export restrictions going away. They wouldn't need as many local resources to manage the materials recovery facilities and digesters and things like that. They had more tools for collecting, recycling, and working with the private sector. And then the materials could potentially be kept local rather than being shipped out of the local community, out of state, or even out of country. And then again, the benefits to businesses was that they would get more options for managing their waste as a resource versus putting it in the landfill, help them meet their zero landfill goals. They would have more materials available if they were able to use those materials in their processes, more disposal options, and a better level playing field for facilities. We had a lot of trouble with a few composters years ago, and that's really soured a lot of communities on having composters in their commercial composters in their area. And so they actually reached out to us and asked us to better regulate them so that they would have a better chance of being successful because they were better regulated. So those were kind of the selling points we were using to the different categories to get support for the statutory changes. But next slide, the biggest or the center point or the crux of what we feel is going to make all of this successful is our materials management planning. We had always had solid waste planning. You know, you needed to show you had 10 years of capacity for your waste. And we changed that to materials management planning so that counties now will have to identify facilities, material recovery facilities, composters, et cetera, that are within their borders. They have to have a better sense of the materials that are being generated by their residents and their businesses and where those materials can go and how they can be managed. We are really pushing for a regional approach, not a county by county approach. And from what we're hearing, that a lot of the counties are looking at a regional approach. Again, they don't have to worry about the import-export limitations. And we're using local zoning for most of these material utilization facilities. We felt the need and were asked to regulate them, but we didn't want to over-regulate them because these are things we want to happen, we want to encourage. So we didn't want to have a very hard, convoluted citing process for them. We updated the regular citing process that we had. And one of the things we did was say that, again, to drive recycling and reuse was that we weren't going to allow any new greenfield landfills unless the county could make a demonstration that one was needed. So a currently existing landfill, if they had a contiguous area to develop, they could do that. But we would not allow a new greenfield landfill, so somebody couldn't start out someplace new. We did allow the county to make a demonstration because especially in northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula, the landfills are fewer and farther between, and we didn't want people to have to drive, 200 miles with a load of waste if one of their local landfills closed. So, but we feel that this is where we're going to generate a lot of the data that we need to show what materials are available and where they are available. So next slide. We do have some terms within the statute that were causing some confusion for folks. One of them is our benchmark recycling standard. And so these set up dates by which certain things have to happen relative to residential recycling. So by January 1st, 2026, single-family dwellings in urbanized area have to have access to curbside. We're already at 93%, so we're well ahead of that. And then next would be for single-family dwellings in municipalities with greater than 5,000 residents. And then finally, in 2032, we switched from municipalities to counties. And so those less populated counties have to have drop-off facilities based on how many residents they have. So again, this is to assure that all residents have access to recycling that is at least somewhat convenient. And then the recycling rate is what we are charged with bringing up to 45%. So we felt the need to identify that. And then materials management goals are what the counties put in their materials management plan. And these are the things that they identify based on learning more about what's already available in their county and what materials are available that maybe don't have a good option for them yet. So again, when you put in a lot of new requirements, at least in Michigan, we have what we call the Headley Amendment. We have to pay, if we require local units of government to take on a responsibility, the state has to fund that responsibility. So the next slide speaks to our Renewing Michigan's Environment program. That the legislature, this was interesting, the legislature actually provided us with funding to implement the statute nearly 3 years before the statute was actually passed in the legislature. So I don't think that's ever happened in the history of government, where you got the money before you got the approval to use the money. But we figured it out. And so it's $69 million. The money came from the courts deciding that states could tax online sales. And so like many states, we saw a significant increase to revenue. And so it's about $69 million a year. And 22% of that goes towards recycling, and that's about $9 million a year. So that funds the county's efforts to update their plans, as well as other market development and infrastructure projects for recycling. And that funding, next slide, again, grants to the counties for planning, competitive grants for outreach and education, market development grants, and then resources for the planning process and for us to manage these newly regulated facilities. So that's kind of the 115 program and the updates and the changes in a very quick nutshell, because I wanted to spend some time to talk about our sustainability programs. So next slide. Like I said, originally our divisions kind of divided into two pieces, the regulatory piece and then the sustainability piece. And our sustainability programs are all managed with an eye towards Michigan's Healthy Climate Plan. We have a climate plan, and that's kind of the backdrop for the programs and projects that we have within our sustainability programs. And again, that's the energy, pollution prevention, and recycling, and how they all kind of merge. And you'll see up in the corner that the funding sources, some of that Renew money is used for this purpose, but we also get Department of Energy, EPA, Volkswagen funding, and Department of Agriculture funding for those programs. So next slide. We have 5 focus areas that we have in terms of these programs. So at the community level, agriculture, small business, small manufacturers, access for folks for renewable energy and recycling, transportation, and then education and workforce development. So a broad focus there. And go to the energy programs. We've got a lot of energy programs. I'll just talk about a few of them. Some of them are probably similar to things that you have, and especially with the federal funding. But Charge Up Michigan is one where we're putting EV charging stations around the state. We had MSU do a study for us to find the optimal placement for both passenger vehicles and then truck transportation. And we've created a three-way partnership for that, where the state, through our Eagle grants, provides 1/3 the funding. The utility associated with wherever these chargers are going to be placed puts up 1/3 of the funding, and then whoever the host is puts up 1/3 of the funding. And so one of the examples I can give, because it's about a half mile from my house, and it's probably someone you're familiar with, the Meijer stores, the Meijer grocery stores are big users of this process. So as well as some other businesses, some communities and everything else, but it's allowed that funding to go a lot farther than if we paid for the full cost of those EV chargers. We also have what we call a Restart program. It's retired engineers, scientists, technicians, administrators, researchers, and teachers. And they work through Lawrence Technical University and are available to businesses of 500 employees or less, and can go and give them energy audits and help them figure out how to do pollution prevention, recycling, energy savings. So just wanted to point out a couple of those. Next, we have our pollution prevention programs. One of them that we're kicking off right now is a zero food waste pilot. We had a community in Southeast Michigan volunteer to be the guinea pig to have a zero food waste disposed in their community. And we're hoping, if we're successful, that will be used throughout, that we'll be able to use what we learned through that process for other communities to take on the same thing, to kind of be a blueprint. So that the next slide shows kind of what our pollution prevention programs are. And we are really pushing food waste. We've had a ban on yard waste going to landfills for probably decades at this point. But food waste is still a major issue in terms of methane generation and problems at landfills with gas management and things. And so we are putting a lot of focus on not generating the food waste in the first place, because that's the easiest way to handle it, but then also looking at increasing our composting and our anaerobic digestion. So, and then the last large program area we have is our recycling programs. And again, a lot of these are geared towards residential recycling. That's what our recycling rate is based on. So that's the next slide shows about that. And we have a lot of technical assistance. We have the infrastructure grants. We have market development grants. We got some funding from the legislature for 2 specific projects dealing with critical minerals, and that's for research at a university to deal with some of those metals that are in a lot of our electronics and everything else, and how to better recover them. And then reverse vending. We have a bottle take back program in Michigan, can and bottle beverage take back program. And so that's some of that funding was applied to beef up that program. So, but next slide, I want to talk a little bit about some of the programs there. We have a Catalyst Communities initiative, and it's been really successful. That's where some of the communities that are kind of front runners with a lot of these issues, we give them some support, but then they actually provide help and support and stories for other communities to help them learn, what was the success? What did you try that didn't work, and that kind of thing. And a fellows program to help keep a lot of that information available to others. And, a lot of webinars dealing with them, and workshops. And then if there's a conference where those communities may be available, they'll have a pre-conference meeting with them to, again, talk about things that they're doing. So, and then next slide, we do have, again, the recycling grants. We have a lot of those available, but we have a website, and the link is there for all of the grants that we have available Eagle-wide. So it's not just recycling or energy grants, it's water infrastructure grants and everything else. And so I wanted to just give that plug in case you were interested. And then in terms of, next slide, in terms of our outreach and education, I don't know how far they may have reached into Ohio, but we've had very strong success with our Recycling Raccoon Squad. And they have their own website, and they've done commercials, they do public appearances and everything else. They went on hiatus during COVID and never really picked up as much steam, but they have been very popular both with the public and with legislators. So if there's something you need to convince folks that your project is worthwhile, I'd suggest getting some mascots. So, and then wanted to talk about one other program that we have that is fairly unique. I think we were the second in the country, and now there's a third. It's called Next Cycle. So ours, of course, is Next Cycle Michigan, but I believe that Colorado and Washington also have programs. And it's a market development strategy, and we use partnerships with a lot of folks to provide facilitation, technical support, capacity building, and then access to public and private funding opportunities for folks. So it's data driven, and gap analysis was done to see where we had the biggest issues in terms of our efforts to get a circular economy going, to become more sustainable. We only have about a 21% recycling rate in Michigan, which is horrendous. So this is, again, just another mechanism to try to increase our abilities. And so this is bringing folks in that have an idea, but aren't sure where to go with it, to get some support. They can get technical support, they can get funding support and different things. And again, like I said, the state can't be the be all and end all for everything, that we need to have other partners. And so this has been very successful. We've got some sponsoring partners, which are kind of the big dogs, the Carton Council, the Closed Loop Partners, Dow Chemical, Food Service Packaging, Ice Mountain, the water suppliers. And then we've got about 70 active partners, many of which are local, but not all local. And we have the accelerator tracks that we have going right now are public entities that are leading solutions, supply chain folks, organic materials, and then innovation and tech solutions. And so these folks get access to funding, get access for technical support, get access for new ideas and things. So, but we also, everything that we do also has a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens put to it. So we're always looking for projects that advance jobs and access and business development in underserved communities. And that can be both rural and urban. But we feel that Next Cycle is going to be an integral part of us getting to our 45% recycling rate. And also it aligns well with the climate goals and our state's back to work initiatives. So that, I think, was the last slide. And I just have some more website information where you can get all sorts of details, more than you ever wanted to know about any of this. So hope that was helpful. Hope I kind of hit the highlights of what you were interested in hearing about.
Liz, does anybody have questions for Liz this morning? Hi, Jennifer?
Yes, Jennifer Fenderbosh, I'm representing municipalities. I have a question for you, Liz. Are the landfills owned by the county or by the hauler?
We have municipal and privately owned landfills both.
Hi Liz, thank you for the wonderful presentation. This is Kelly Wetzman. I represent the public. How do you implement, you said your three main hierarchies for waste management were to avoid waste generation, beneficial use, and you dispose of what's left. How do you implement your beneficial use program for materials that have been seen as traditional waste materials? Is there a regulatory approval process you have to go through before you can just place the material somewhere or reuse it? And I'm mostly concerned with natural fills or future.
Well, and I'm sorry, you broke up right at the end, but for
Okay,
beneficial,
like,
okay. Go ahead.
Like for structural fills, or how do you avoid companies just disposing on a piece of property?
Right, that's illegal disposal. So we have beneficial use criteria within our solid waste management program. And so anything that is going to be placed on the land that would meet the definition of solid waste has to get an approval for that, or has to follow the requirements in the statute.
Have you seen any significant reduction in landfill disposal since your program,
Right,
started?
right. Yeah, we've seen, it's not as fast as we would hope, but I think like everybody, COVID kind of threw everything into a little bit of a mess. But we are seeing each year an uptick in the percentage of recycled materials, and we have been seeing a decrease in the volume of material going to landfills.
Thank you.
Sure.
There's other questions for Liz?
Hi, Liz. This is Beth. I represent solid waste districts in the state of Ohio. This question pertains to next cycle.
Mhm.
And so you mentioned that it's kind of a business incubator and market development program. Does the funding to get these ideas off the ground solely come from the state, or where are the sources for the funding to encourage those ideas into reality?
Perfect question. Some of the funding comes from the state, but a lot of the funding comes from the other partners. It's kind of like that, what is that called? Shark Tank? Is that the name of their show? We give a little bit of funding and give folks the opportunity to offer their projects and ideas to potential funders. And then the funders can decide if they want to support it or not. And we've got fairly strong support. There's been over $500,000 provided through the Next Cycle program so far. And believe me, that's not all coming from our division. So, but that's the purpose of it, is that's one of the parts of Next Cycle, is to bring in those folks who are looking for new and different options and opportunities, and connecting them with those folks with the fresh ideas.
Thank you.
Sure. And if you go to the website, there's all sorts of information there. You can see all the different partners and all of that.
Do you have any other questions for Liz before we release her? Liz, thank you so much for spending the time with us. We really appreciate hearing about what's going on in Michigan. And we will be posting her slides to our webpage so that all the information she had will be up there. Thank you again, Liz.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite. And again, I encourage you, look at the websites and reach out if you have questions. Thanks for your time. Take
Thank
care.
you. Next on the agenda, we have Jane Forrest Redfern. She's the director for the Athens Hawkins District. I just love Jane. She's got all kinds of ideas that are fresh and new, and she's going to present on one today. She did this recycling reuse trail in her counties, which is something that we have not seen yet in the state. And so we're excited to hear what she has to say. Thank you for joining us, Jane.
Thank you. Do you want me to share my screen?
Which would you prefer, Jane? Do you want to run your presentation or have us do it?
Did you get it? Go ahead and
Yeah.
share.
We have it. Do you want us to run it for you?
Please.
Yeah, our slides are running a little slow today, so we'll try to advance as quickly as we can. I'm not sure what's up with the technology, but it's not me this time. Normally it would be me, but it's not me.
Here, I can, let me see. Let me see if I can do this. Can you see it?
But we got it, Jane. It's coming up. There we go.
There we go. You see that?
Yes.
Okay. I can't see you, but that's okay.
We have the
I've been-
presentation. I think Jeff's controlling it for you.
Oh, okay. There we go. Thank you. I'm Jane Forrest Redfern. I'm the Athens Hawkins Solid Waste District Director. And you can advance. Athens Hawkins is the most beautiful solid waste district in Ohio. No one has argued with me about that, so I'm taking it. We have a population district of around 90,000 people. We have over 4 million visitors annually coming to Hawkins and Athens region, and we have a large tourist economy. We also have thousands of visitors that stay overnight in the Hocking Hills, Logan, and Athens area, and lots of events at Ohio University every weekend. Thousands of students are moving in and out of Athens and Nelsonville annually, so there's a big influx of materials during the schools beginning and ending everywhere. We have 22 drop-off locations throughout the district and one recycling center, which is basically a charm in Logan. And trails are a reason people come to the region for the parks in Athens County. We have, of course, the National Forest here and the beautiful Hocking Hills. Go ahead. So as you know, as the advisory committee, one of the requirements of solid waste districts is to have a directory of where materials can go. So when I got here, our directory was basically a laminated piece of paper. There wasn't anything on the website. And so with a Recycle Ohio grant, I developed the Move On Guide. Moving on in that there are a lot of students and faculty and professionals that move in and out of the region, but also folks, many times call me that their parent has died. Where can I get rid of all this stuff? So the Move On Guide was a comprehensive guide to properly getting rid of stuff. So this was my first attempt to do a directory. This is online as we do have, we also have paper copies that we share. But we have had really, really great feedback on this. Next slide. So we still get questions about where can I take this and where can I take that? And so my AmeriCorps and I, because I'm just a one-person office, we're brainstorming because people, the number one question about recycling is where does stuff go and what's it used for? And so we were kind of brainstorming on how we could communicate where stuff goes and what it's used for, as well as there's a real need in our community anyway to find places to repair items. So we came up with the idea of a trail because trails are everything in our area. And so Athens Hocking Recycling Trail is the first of its kind, and it's devoted to conserving energy and resources. But we also want to connect locals and visitors to our nearby businesses and organizations where they can reuse, repair, and recycle materials, as well as go to all our thrift stores, antique stores, and reuse shops as it's kind of a trend right now. So this was, the recycling trail was born. If you're interested, this is actually a place in Hocking Hills, and if you know where it is, I'll give you a patch with that logo on it. But it's a place in the Hocking Hills that's been kind of photoshopped, as we say. All right, move on. So our recycling trail is both online as well as a paper copy. And I apologize that I was not able to get paper copies to you today, but by your next meeting, I'll have some for you to be able to review. The way to use the map online as well as the paper map is to ask yourself whether you want to get rid of an item. And if you do, is it functional? If it's not functional, do you want to repair it or recycle it? If you want to get rid of it because it's not repairable, then it sends you to the reuse category. It also asks you if you want to purchase something. So if you want to purchase something, then you check out the reuse trail stops. Or last but not least, if you're ready to recycle it, go to the recycling trail stops. Then once, if you go to the website, you can actually see, and that's recyclingtrail.com. You can actually see that each of the answers to the questions are clickable. And so once you click it, everything is sorted in reuse, repair, and recycle. And then everything's categorized by category of household goods, electronics, paper goods, books, all of those different things. So you can move on. So this is what it looks like online. And this is a clickable Google map with all of the different sites on it. So you can each reuse, recycle, and repair all have their own logo. Repair is a wrench. My drop-off locations are the purple logos, and then we have recycle is green and reuse is purple, I think. So that's what it looks like. Up at the top here, it's click here for recycling trail events and registration, and then click here for recycling days. You can move on. You can move on.
Fine.
Okay.
Our slide is delayed a little bit here.
So on the website, you'll see the questions that I just reviewed. Do you want to purchase something, get rid of something? And then you then click that particular area. And then that will then take you to a list of items. So if you want to click this and then click again, that would be great. So advance 2 slides.
We're having a very long delay on our slides, Jane. I'm not sure what's going on, but.
Okay. So there we go. So let's say, for instance, you want to reuse items. There are different categories: antiques, building supplies, clothing, electronics, etc. And then when you click on that, go ahead and advance, you will see the locations of all of the places, for instance, that will take electronics, working and non-working. And then when you click on those, it will take you to the Google map, and the Google map will show you a picture. It will show you the working times, whether it's open or closed, what days it's opened, and then you can click it for directions. Go ahead. You can click it for directions. So if you're coming from Columbus, Ohio, and you want to go to the Hocking Mills Antique Mall, you can actually get directions to get there. Okay, you can advance. So this is what it looks like when you click on it, and it will actually, you can hit the directions portion there. All right, you can forward it. But one thing that we wanted to do is internet conductivity is not very good in I don't know, 50% of our district. We thought we would make a paper version of the map. And that's the next slide. This is a map that opens up, and it has the same questions on it as the online version. Do you want to get rid of something? Do you want to? And then it will open up to have 3 different columns: reuse. You can forward it. Reuse. Okay. Recycle and repair. And then depending on you want repaired, you then look at those categories, and then you find all of the locations. There we go. You find all of the locations for antiques or clothing. Can you go back one? There we go. Repair, these are all the different things that we repair. We did not put auto repair or tire repair, but I'm thinking we might add tire repair and recycling on it, since we're doing the tire education program. We did add the food distribution. That's where people could donate food, but also pick it up. Up in the upper left-hand corner, if you want some tunes while you're on the recycling trail, it's our recycling jingle that you can play. You just scan it in with the QR code. Of course, we want to make sure people don't litter on the recycling trail. We gave kind of some direction of other trails to explore. We have our Sutton Road Recycling Center ad, our Move On Guide, our drop-off stations, talking about our recycling days and household hazardous waste collection, composting, and our libraries. Our libraries are big recyclers and reusers, so want to make sure we called them out. Go ahead. So then all of these codes under reuse, repair, and recycle are 1 to whatever number. It's over 200 sites. And those then are highlighted on the map. And you look at the inset. So it will say like the name, the address, the city, and that way you can look at the next map and be able to see where it is in the district. So as you can see, most of the, well, as you will see, most of the recycling trail spots are in the cities. but there are some in the rural, deep rural areas of the district. You can go ahead and forward it,
Where's
and
Scott?
then once you show that for 30 seconds, go ahead to the next one. So we have these beautiful maps, and we distributed them to all of the locations. We distributed them to all of the locations. And we also gave people stickers, and we distribute them to the Hocking Hills Tourism Association, the cabins in the Hocking Hills, libraries, local governments, fairs, markets, events, and we share information on social media, of course. There we go. Can you see that?
Oh, thank you, Jane.
Okay, so these signs, right? Can you see my
Yep.
pointer? This is a sign that we put out in front of drop-offs, and a lot of the businesses, the libraries have these. So it kind of gives direction on where the recycling trail locations are. This top one here is a magnet that goes on like repair places that go out to people's houses. And recycling vehicles have these as well. These are our recycling trail event signs. And these down here are stickers that go into store windows to indicate that they're stops on the trail. Now, how do you get people to use the places on the recycling trail? Well, you give them a passport, and we ask them to identify a need. And then once they stop at a particular place, whether it's a drop off or an antique store or thrift store, or they get their sewing machine repaired, they can then list it, what date they visited. And then once they have 10 locations on their recycling trail, they win a gift. So one is this beautiful patch. And it's actually a patch that you have to sew on. So that's great. And then there are some that have Bigfoot in it, and we're just going to let people grab from them. They get a Bigfoot one, great. We also, want to encourage people to shop on the recycling trail. So we have bumper stickers that say I shopped on the recycling trail, and we had a local resident make trail shopping bags. So they would fit like a grocery store shopping bag, or a grocery store paper bag. And it's beautiful, and it has I shopped on the recycling trail. And then lastly, what do you need for a trail but a walking stick? And that was made out of waste wood from a local mill, and also bamboo. And a local nursing student at Ohio University that lives nearby made those out of the mill waste. So we're diverting as much waste as possible. There we go. Here is our guide to the thrift stores, antique shops, and upcycled gifts on the Athens Hocking Recycling Trail. These were distributed to all of the locations so that people could pick it up in Logan and say, oh, there's more thrift stores in Athens. We also had events. We had an upcycled Valentine Day card event, hem repair and embellish your pants workshop, tuning up your lawn equipment. This went really, really well. And then coming up at the end of the month, we have the Fix It Fest. So you may ask, where's the recycling trail? And the beautiful thing is that you create your own as you need it. and we are really excited about it. We've gotten really good media coverage locally. The repair people are really excited because they do not have the phone book anymore. I mean, people just don't use the phone book. So anyway, we want to get some people this spring to be using the recycling trail as much as possible. Plus, we have a lot of trail events, tire collections, and recycling days coming up. So we thought we would do a scavenger hunt. And so we are kicking it off this Saturday, where people will go on the scavenger hunt, and they need to visit a library, go get an antique furniture repair shop, use t-shirt, and they just need to take photos of all these. And then you go to the recycling trail website and then register that you've visited all of these spots, and then you get a prize, and then you get a grand prize of $100 when your name is drawn out. So I'm trying to just kind of encourage people to use it and make it fun, and people like scavenger hunts, so no pressure on me. It's very inexpensive, but it's a way for people to get out there. If you note, I have oil recycling location. Oil and paint are the number 1 and 2 things for my household hazardous waste collection day. So I'm probably going to be having an event at a recycling, oil recycling location sometimes this spring. But I'm also trying to bring people's attention that you can recycle oil at lots of locations in the district. So this is our way of being creative, working with people that do have internet, and people that don't have internet, which is a major problem in our area. And so we feel like this was a really great creative idea. We actually got recyclingtrail.com, and want to encourage other solid waste districts and communities to adopt their own. But ours is copyrighted, so you have to ask permission. So that's basically, we invite all visitors to come down and jump on the recycling trail, spend some money, go drop off your recycling once you stayed at one of our cabins, or just go on a hike and enjoy the other trails on in the district. So, any questions?
Jane, it doesn't look like we have questions, but thank you so much for presenting that. It's a lot of work went into that. And now I want to come down to your area and see what's all on the trail.
Yep, I'll bring some up. In closing then, I would appreciate, I want to thank the grants team and Ernie and his team for all of their support. There's only one of me here with a part-time AmeriCorps volunteer, and we don't have much money either. So with the Recycle Ohio grants, we're able to do things that kind of help us kind of get to the next level, and to be able to support our efforts to divert and to reduce and recycle as much as possible. So I can't stay on because I've got meetings this afternoon, but I did want to say one thing, that when you're developing the new solid waste management plan, I would encourage the advisory committee to also have solid waste districts develop plans for recycling. I am in a situation where at the end of the year, it may be that the person that's picking up my recycling now and composting in our community may not be here. And I am trying to figure out what options, we worry about where our landfill, where our waste is going to go. But we don't have to outline options for recycling in the future. You want us to outline how we're going to meet our 25%, but you don't outline where our recycling is going to go. And so I just want to encourage, probably the solid waste districts are going to scream at me to say that, but I find myself at a loss right now what we're going to be able to do. I don't want to have trucks, but I might have to have trucks by the end of the year. And I just think that as the advisory committee, that would be one step that you can move towards in making sure that we're having a circular economy here in Ohio to take our recycling and electronics and all of that a place, and to make sure we have those places. So I appreciate the opportunity, and I can talk with you more about it. But as I finish up my solid waste management plan, it would have been a good exercise for me in developing it to have alternatives to my current plan and current mode of operation. So thank you very much. Good luck. And if I can ever help, please come down and look at our beautiful district. It's the most beautiful one in the state. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jane.
Bye-bye.
Next on the agenda, the last meeting, we had heard a little bit about a survey effort that Aswato has been working on to identify how household hazardous waste is being managed across Ohio. And so we have Brad Petrie here, who's going to give us a quick update on how that's been going. Hi, Brad.
Hey, how are you? How's everyone? Let's see.
Doing well. Thanks for being on, Brad.
Well, I'm just clicking here. So can you see the Aswato and Ohio EPA joint? So you see that on your screen?
We can.
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to just try to hit some highlights. And then I know that Ohio EPA does have access to this. So this is something that can be shared with MAC as well too. There's a lot of good meat and potatoes in here that I thought that had some value added to it. These are just a list of the districts on the top here that have completed this survey as well. I think there was 27. We had a 52% respondents rate, so which for all the solid waste districts, I wish I got that with my ADRs, but there's that. One of the things that, the first question they had was, what services does your district authority provide to your residents? There, with the exception of the electronics and the adult education programs, there was, no need or desire to offer. But outside of that, I mean, everybody else is doing something with this, whether it's provide a full-time permanent, part-time permanent, a temporary event within the 5 years, would like to offer or not feasible, but there's just some different options that were offered here. Under other, and this is where I want to try to spend most of our time, because I do want to be conscious of the time here too. But we have examples here of some of the other things offered: the holiday light recycling, compost bin sale, free uncontaining appliance voucher, just kind of jumping through foam collection, hard drive destruction, the Keep Montgomery County Beautiful program. So there's different others that are listed as what does your authority provide to your residents. Going down here, which services do your districts provide to businesses, municipalities, or other sectors? Most everyone is providing waste audits. Miami County does not have like a certification program, but regionally we have like the Dayton Regional Bring Your Green, and we can participate. We can encourage Miami County businesses to participate in that, have and do. So it's just something that's there and available. Recycling contract reviews. There again, you can see that currently offered. The vast majority of the districts are currently offering that. District sponsored grant programs, business recycling, or business recycling routes, I should say, events, special event recycling, and then the others. And then the others, again, this is kind of one of the things I like. We have the recycling trail. Not so much for anonymity on that one. Pollution prevention internship, technical assistance with, to suppliers to businesses, touch a truck events. I mean, just different opportunities that, that districts are offering. Again, want to, make this available to everybody as well too. And of course, we'll open this up for questions at the end as well. Which facilities do your district have, or which facilities do your districts have? So just down below, Ohio EPA already has data on landfills and MSW transfer facilities, but this is going to be those CHARM or HHW facilities. Space to conduct educational programs. Do you have a conference room or a classroom, if you will? Do you have a MRF, a recycling transfer station, yard waste composting, food waste composting, and then other. And there's, under this food waste composting, kind of the new pioneer frontier here, looks like there's a very small that are actually operated by the district. Of course, there are some that are operated, by another entity, but, as we continue to expand on some of these recyclable items. So the other, the waste transfer facility in Adams County, we employ a hub and spoke method of collecting, managing, and shipping HHW. Clarifying food waste. The district plans to focus on educational financial resources, but does not operate a facility, and we will rely on Price Farms Organics. CHARM partnership with Logan County Hazmat. There again, we talked a little bit about Michigan, and I was listening to that. These regional approaches, and I think that maybe this regional, we can still manage and maintain their solid waste districts, but perhaps through Oswego, kind of take a regional look and approach to that too. Just food for thought. The question 8 was, what services would you like your solid waste management district to offer? What is your vision wish list for the future? We got lots of good responses on that. What areas, and I will get, it's at the end of the document. That wasn't a cliffhanger, I promise. What areas could you use training or technical or financial assistance with? The best one, and I noticed that the highest one here, was the reporting and data collection. Here we are in ADR season. And actually I will share, and maybe we'll use this as a resource, but is it, I'm gonna get the wrong name. It's Cuyahoga County, Doreen, and I always butcher her last name, but she does this recycling business roundtable chat. And, she gave some pointers. I actually asked that question once to her. And she said that, that of course she does follow up. She, knocks on doors, she picks up the phone, she calls. But one of the things that I actually, my takeaway for that was that she'll, for the respondents of the survey, she'll actually send a postcard thank you, just as a follow-up, yes, we received your message, or yes, we received your survey. And that has helped a little bit. But, there's still always going to be those factions that don't participate. Financial strategic planning, that was kind of right up there, as well as developing infrastructure. So, as we saw, there's a lot of districts that have, great ideas, maybe just not the space to be able to do it. So some of the top 3 that we've kind of covered there as well too. It looks like everybody has a good control on their staffing, as well as they're reviewing contracts and developing partnerships with other districts. I mean, I have been an advocate for picking up the phone and calling your neighbors. So what is your single greatest challenge as a SWMD besides lack of funding? Of course, that's to be continued. And does your solid waste management district have the ability to host on-site programs and room to expand or add services? 15 yes, 9 no, 6 others. Most of our educational programs are off-site. We do offer tours that can handle up to 20 people or so. Yes to programs and no to additional services. We have the room to host smaller educational programs, but lack the room for larger collection events. Currently in review. Each county could host its own programs and depends on the program and time of day. Where is your office physically located? 17 was a formal office space, such as a county courthouse or county safety building. There's some that have a leased space, ED, not T. 1 at a landfill, 2 at a transfer station, and 7 others. So we have, just as the long one here, our office is in the same building as our health department. We do not have to pay a lease, but we would like to have our own office space and conference center for our solid waste district that is closer to and I'm sure there's more continued with that. There's both a formal county office space and currently, or at the county owned, transfer station. So, Just the different demographics. And this is the reason that question was simply asked is, you know, we're trying to get a gauge for facilities. What do districts have? What can districts offer? Looking that we're only on page 4 here, I'll speed this up a little bit. If your solid waste management district operates a permanent HHW and or charm facility, what HHW items do you accept? Large portion accepts latex paint, other paints, motor oil, chemical pesticides, fluorescent light bulbs. I was one of these respondents that was old medication and used sharps. We do not take old medication in our HHW program. You know, the sheriff's office, police departments, they have a pretty robust program for that. And we don't take them at our HHW event, but we do take like used sharps for free. Gas cylinder and propane tanks, fats, oils, grease, gasoline and other fuels, mercury and other. Other is, you know, they just different programs like Miami County hosts a permanent but seasonal program. In this particular instance, this user said that we utilize EEI for a voucher program and would like to have a regional HHW facility. You know, batteries, fire extinguishers. I mean, batteries, that's kind of the dirty word of the day. But you know, they have their challenges. So, and again, this will be again made available for everybody for them to see. If your SWMD operates a permanent HHW and or charm facility, what hard to recycle items do you accept? You know, no plans to accept mattresses, you know, for the vast majority, or excuse me, yes, no plans to accept, you know, for the mattresses. TVs look like there's a pretty robust program as for that as well. So most charge, you know, they're not free to get rid of, so that would kind of fall in line. Electronics, batteries, you know, furniture, you know, so areas for growth. I mean, mattresses, furniture, you know, clothing, food waste, yard waste, you know, plastic film bags, you know, and this was, you know, there again, there's just kind of highlighting some areas and opportunity for growth for, you know, some of these hard to recycle items. You know, some of the other items that were listed here, tires and items, are listed as accepted at our Adams County transfer facility, you know, which there that I laughed when I saw it, I was aware. So we only operate a weekend style annual HHW paint event and an e-waste event. We also operate a voucher program for Freon-based appliances. We do not charge for flat screen TVs, you know, just and so on and so forth. They're shredding, you know, the United States flags. I thought that was a neat program as well too. You know, are there materials that residents ask you about frequently that you currently have no disposal or recycling answers for? Anything else on the horizon concerning? So this is, and I won't go through each one of these, but you know, no, our biggest hurdle is the lack of convenient options for Claremont County residents. They don't want to drive to EEI. And you know, that I can echo that as a seasonal program. You know, undoubtedly our program ends at the end of September. October 1st, we get the phone call of, hey, I'm cleaning out my dad's barn. What do I do with this stuff? So we try to find options for them. Batteries, I mean, that's a very popular one. You know, infrastructure. Vapes, that actually came up. You know, we've been starting to get more of those questions as well too. Alkaline batteries and HHW liquids. Permanent styrofoam recycling drop-off, food waste drop-off. You know, that's kind of like step 5, you know, if you're having infrastructure problems, you know, at the ground level, we want to make sure that we're trying to be aware of and help to address those. Few options for old gasoline, mercury, you know, sterno cans, glass windows, tanks such as helium. What services would you like your solid waste management district to offer? What is your vision wish list for the future? HHW charm facility. I mean, if you have one, you have one. If you don't, you don't. You obviously would want one. Business and school paper recycling. You know, an education facility, and you know that's something that you know I'm also shared resources for solid waste districts. I'm also shared resources for the county. You know, I have the ability and access to our commissioner's hearing room if I want to host something. You know, if you kind of think outside the box a little bit, you're able to maybe fill some of those needs. You know, year-round services, to get a transfer station in Clark County with a recycling component to help litter prevention and increase recycling rate. You know, let's go pick a long one here. We would like to help coordinate curbside recycling in more areas within the district. I would like to offer legal services to small townships so that they can walk through the legal process to create waste districts and contract our trash and recycling services. Here we have, I would love to see a feasible plan to offer food waste composting to residents and businesses. I would like to see this run as a private facility. Waste to energy, there is not a lot of incineration in the state of Ohio for solid waste. One facility that I'm aware of. Full-time recycling containers in our county villages. What is your single greatest challenge as a solid waste management district besides funding, staffing, contamination? This is a good one, and this kind of speaks to the whole state solid waste plan as a whole, but it says serving all of our audiences that solid waste management districts are charged to serve within a county. Make that bigger even within the state. It is difficult to be an expert in all matters related to recycling, human behavioral change, models, infrastructure, operations, financing models, data analytics, understanding the commodity markets, marketing, communications, and technology to advance communications. And that can be, like I say, can be echoed across the state. Contamination on all our sites, lack of mandatory reporting. We had that pop up earlier with, how do you get people to talk to you? Well, it's not mandated, so they don't have to. So you just try to be nice. Pick this one, it's long. It says our biggest hurdle is recycling infrastructure access. We have very limited curbside access, so our primary recycling available is at drop-off sites. Our 40+ drop-off sites costing us $750,000 annually is like to go up in their New Year contract this year, are not providing enough access. Our poor and rural areas have almost no access. We do not have funds to offer to or subsidize curbside. How do we get our townships to have curbside recycling access or curbside recycling access? Again, excellent questions. Finding outlets for tires, writing a solid waste plan. Hopefully we can, kind of address some of that. MRF automation, for those that operate one of those. Excuse me. If you do not operate or currently operate a CHARM or permanent HHW facility, or have a firm that plans to open one in the near future, what are your major obstacles? Lack of physical space, lack of staff to maintain and operate, lack of local support and participation, seasonality concerns, lack of participation or insulated facilities. So lack of physical space, staff to operate, we're looking into options. Not planning on such a facility, and so they're not going to build one. Lack of a physical space, staffing money, or local support. Lack of space. I mean, we see that kind of pop up again and again. And, as we talk about waste management as a whole, these are going to be great for us to kind of dive into. Actually, since I put one in there, it says Miami County operates the transfer station and recycling drop-off owned by the county, staffed by the county. Many of the CHARM items described are already being handled by the current infrastructure in place. So, we're not looking to build a CHARM facility. We're able to kind of handle that waste stream currently. Do you have a one tip or trick that you would like to share with your other fellow solid waste management districts? Networking with other county agencies can help when you have limited resources. That was a good one. Kind of goes back to the whole shared space type idea. We'll again, I want to try to keep us on time here as much as I can. So talking to people is key, just like we're doing here today. Any other questions or comments that you would like to, for the OEPA or SWATO to know? Nothing, they're the government. No, I'm kidding. All right, it says, I think the solid waste districts need to help with marketing and using social media to effectively manage their messaging. Understanding the benefits, risks, and liability of social media would be helpful as more consumers are accessing content via non-traditional channels. Also, better metrics for explaining the environment or environmental benefits of recycling. How recycling impacts climate change. Is it always a net benefit? When would you consider, when you consider hauling, processing equipment, and pollution? I think there's a lot to unpack when you start really examining the multiple steps required to get commodities to the market as well. And I think that's a great place to stop. And I would encourage, if anybody has any questions, specifically about the survey, I'd be happy to try to field those for you as well.
We have access to that survey. Yes, we do.
Yes, I believe Sarah should have that, and Lindsay as well.
I think all that is important information as we continue to work on the solid waste management plan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brad. We really appreciate you spending the time to go over that with us.
It's my pleasure.
We have Jobs Ohio is here with us. We have Bertha Gavadanula and Matt Waldo are here from Jobs Ohio to go over a recent report that they're on. So Karthik will make the presentation pulled up with our slow slides.
No problem. Hello, everybody. My name is Karthik Avadanla. I'm the Senior Director of Advanced Manufacturing for Jobs Ohio. My colleague Matt Waldo, who is a Senior Director of Research, is here. I believe Tim Derrickson, our Managing Director for Food and Agribusiness Sector, is also attending online. Also, Erin from Resource Recycling Systems, who helped us with this recycling study for the state of Ohio, is also here. So during the presentation or after the presentation or whenever, feel free to ask questions, reach out to us as you generate questions. Looking around the room, it will feel like majority of what I'm going to speak is preaching to the choir. So please bear with me or feel free to take a nap. Let's get to the slide. So briefly introducing what is Jobs Ohio. Jobs Ohio is a state's private economic development organization. We are a not-for-profit. We were privatized back in 2011-12 timeframe. One of the things I would mention right up front is our mission is primarily focused on economic development, and we are not a policy organization. We don't advocate for or against any policies. We use the framework that is given to us by the legislature, and we operate within that sandbox. Right up front, when we were started, one of the primary decisions was to focus on tradable jobs. That is represented here in the 10 sectors on the slide here on the left. Tradable jobs are nothing but these are the jobs in industry sectors where goods and services can be produced anywhere and sold anywhere across the world. So you can produce a car somewhere and sell across the world anywhere, or an IT service can be developed, a software can be developed anywhere, sold anywhere else in the world. So we do not focus on population-dependent, non-tradable jobs like grocery stores, salons, and all of those. The idea being the growth in empirical evidence also suggests that growth in tradable jobs automatically drives growth in the rest of the non-tradable sectors as well. These tradable sectors only represent about 25% of the economy. So we focus on that. And obviously, the idea of creating a privatized economic development was to provide business-friendly economic development service to organizations. And some of the services that we provide are site selection, to providing incentive support, and connecting with all of the agencies here in the state, and developing partnerships, and definitely business support. We are a very small organization. Obviously, state of Ohio is 7th largest in the union, and that's why we have 6 regional partners who mirror us at the regional level. Those are the 6 that you see on the map here on the right. Those are our regional partners. We are the biggest funder of their operations, but they are our boots on the ground to help us connect with the employers in each of the regions. Going to the next slide. Obviously, not being a state agency, many of the services that businesses need are provided by state agencies like the EPA, ODNR, or all of them. And we act as a conduit to help make sure the businesses have right connections with these agencies so that they are serviced well. That is a point of business friendliness. And we would not be successful without these partnerships that we have developed with these agencies. And obviously, EPA is one of the very important agencies when we are citing a site or a building to a company. So this is not an exhaustive list. There is more agencies that we partner with. That is a brief introduction. Now let's get into the recycling study. Next slide, please. So why did we engage in this recycling study. So when we started this process back in 2022, we realized we saw a lot of Ohio's large employers making significant ESG goals, and those goals lead to job creation or jobs at risk, along with some of the organizations like the US Plastics Pact making arguments for eliminating some of the problematic plastics. And Ohio being one of the largest plastics product manufacturing state, glass, plastic, and rubber products manufacturing state, a lot of our businesses and the jobs associated with that are potentially at risk. And if we nurture this industry, the idea was we could be growing that, or we could be playing defense and offense at the same time. That was one of the needs we identified. And going to the next slide, we also saw an increased frequency of businesses from outside the country and outside the state requesting information on this particular availability of feedstock to set up their operations in the state of Ohio because of how large we are and how many products, end products that we manufacture. You can see some of the examples, Evergreen becoming one of the largest PET recycler, or ADS becoming the largest HDPE recycler in the country. So those gave us some of the data points to go make sure we understand this industry. In the first slide, when I showed those 10 industries, 3 of those sectors were affected by the recycling industry. So advanced manufacturing, food, energy, and petrochemical sectors. So these 3 sectors, we joined our efforts together to make sure, with help from research, to try to understand. We lack knowledge in this industry, so we try to understand what is Ohio's recycling infrastructure, current state, and what is the potential possible. Going to the next slide, when that need was identified, we were recommended, RRS came highly recommended from business partners. So I'll let Erin talk about RRS briefly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karthik. So RRS is I'd like to say, a passionate, mission-driven company. We are based out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, though we do have a resident in Dublin here for RRS. But a majority of our staff is across the whole country, and even in a couple other countries as well. And this whole study was a walk through what is the infrastructure in Ohio, how our solid waste districts working with the system, as well as a kind of a deep dive in terms of the understanding of the infrastructure and the supply chain that is connected. Sometimes you can't necessarily control your end users, those with the processor. So we walked through all of that with the study to understand where the economic growth needs to happen in order to get more recycling.
So going to the next slide. So the recycling study that we conducted was basically 5 steps. Distilling that, trying to understand what is the current state of Ohio's recycling infrastructure, and what is a policy map, what are the best practices across the country, and what is a potential gap. RRS helped us with an economic model to try to understand where are we now, but what could we be in the future, and what needs to be done to get there. So those are the basic steps we took to try to understand. So going to the next part of the presentation, what did we learn? So next slide. Ohio's recycling infrastructure represents about 2% of Ohio's economy, close to 100,000 jobs. As I mentioned earlier, the 10 sectors that we focus on as Jobs Ohio represents about 25% of the economy. So this is not insignificant. This industry is not insignificant. Although a lot of the jobs in this economy were more population dependent, jobs that were on the collection and processing side. So that's unique. There are several industry players, especially the paper mills, glass mills. The end industry represented very, very well in Ohio because of how large we are in terms of manufacturing in the country. Going to the next slide. So one of the primary learnings early on was Ohio's residential and commercial recycling rate lagged behind national average. And we were doing fairly well on the industrial side, but the residential and commercial recycling rate could be improved. About 11 million tons of waste is sent to the landfills every year, and the landfill characterization showed a vast majority of that is valuable material like paper, plastic, glass, metal, and yard waste. So there is a lot of valuable material that is going to the landfill. Going to the next slide. So why is it happening this way? So what we understood was there is a break in the entire infrastructure. A part of the supply chain is policy driven, while a part of the supply chain is profit driven. The end markets are all profit driven, where when there is a shortage of recycling product like recycled PET or recycled HDPE, the prices fluctuate, and that drives the profits and economies for MRFs and others. But on the collection side, because majority of the collection is driven by the local communities, it's more policy driven decision making rather than profit driven. Obviously, this is nothing new to many of you sitting in the room here. That disconnected incentives is what was a new learning to us. Going to the next slide. As I mentioned, we did, RRS helped us do economic modeling analysis, try to understand what would happen if Ohio went to the average recycling rate for the whole country. That is at 32%, but projected to be about 40% by 2040. So if Ohio went with a steady growth to 40% by 2030, then what would it result in is a potential 2 million tons of additional recyclable material would be diverted from landfills, creating about 35,000 jobs. This did not include the economic impact on the end product manufacturers that use recycled material. And obviously, the ability to promote Ohio for Jobs Ohio's sake. We are a marketing company for the state of Ohio. We would be able to market Ohio as a leader in circular economy. But as I mentioned before, majority of the investment happen on the collection and processing side. That requires a lot of sensitive pro-recycling policies at the state level. So that was one of the learnings. Going to the next slide. Some additional learnings. There is a lot. If we look at what is the potential for recycling within what is going to the landfill, there are high value materials and there are other materials that are recycled in other places. But if you look at what is the potential there of low hanging fruit, it makes sense to focus only on paper, PET, and HDPE within plastics and metals and glass. So these are the 4 things that could completely change our rate of recycling at the residential and commercial level, not even focusing on other things. And the economic modeling shows that even at very high recycling rate of plastic, single-use plastic films and bags, it probably is not worth it because less than 10% of it will be ultimately recycled even at higher rates of recycling. So higher rates of collection. So going to the next slide. Another regional perspective, Northeast Ohio's region's recycling rate of high value materials like paper and plastic, PET and HDPE plastics and metals was concerning given the size of the material that was going to the landfill from Northeast Ohio compared to the other regions. also Western Ohio, the Dayton region. And we think with Cleveland coming online with their recycling initiative starting in 2023, we think that will come to an Ohio average probably by end of 2024. We plan to reassess this same data again next year to see if that is the case. And then obviously Dayton region's recycling rates for glass and also paper are of a little concern. So we are planning to talk to some of the end processors and end use manufacturers to see how they can have an input to this. And also we did a small study on what contributes to the greenhouse gas emissions, and paper seems to be the #1 contributor there from the state of Ohio. So increasing the recycling rate of paper is going to be really beneficial from that perspective. Going to the next slide, I think. As next steps, as I mentioned, Jobs Ohio is not a policy organization. We are a purely economic development organization. This learning was very important to us to try to understand what we have and what needs to be done. And with this learning, what we realized is there is a lot of things that need to happen on the policy side. So we are ready to share this information to whoever needs to see this. Also, we are prioritizing activity in the end market segment, the manufacturers, to try and see what investments they can make, especially in some of the regions where there is higher percentage of material that is going to the landfill, high value materials. So, everybody here can download scan the QR code and download the full report and the data behind it. So feel free to. I think that is all. Any questions?
Here it goes. Just real quick, I'm curious, that 2030 date is a really important date in our country, right? That's when we see those baby boomers fully exiting the workforce. We have this birth rate deficiency right now in the country. Since that time, with this projection, this modeling, do you still see that we have enough people for those jobs that you're forecasting for 2030?
Yes. So if you look at the population dynamics, we are 2025 is when the country as a whole is going to have equal cohorts of all 4 different generations. And there is a lot of workforce initiatives, not only in Ohio, across the country, to make sure the younger generation is up to skills for the jobs that are getting vacated right now, especially in manufacturing, especially in other areas where there is a lack of skills in employees. So the economic modeling, we did not take a specific look at population dynamics, I believe, into what is going to happen. But we did look at what is the potential, and 35,000 is not a significant number when you look at a 10-year timeline. Right.
Thank you.
Do you have other questions for Karthik? Like that? Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. So your economic development, the companies you showed in the slide presentation that you have assisted coming to Ohio, what is your threshold for, companies looking to come to Ohio, for the jobs created? Because, the companies you showed are rather large and that's a small pool. Are we not trying to get, smaller and mid-sized companies to come to Ohio?
So this is quite often we ask this, get asked this question. 80% of our projects are with medium and small companies. Those 10% of companies that are large suck a lot of oxygen regarding media, right? But we work a lot with medium and small companies. The minimum threshold is about 10 jobs.
Means 10 jobs.
Yeah, so if
Okay.
you are not creating at least 10 jobs, the process and paper filing and process to go through all of that to get incentives from Jobs Ohio and services, the reporting, the follow-on reporting is not worth the incentives that you get.
And do you share that same philosophy with all your partners throughout the state, that threshold?
We all operate on the same metrics and same programs and same CRM system even. So we share a lot of information. We all operate off of the same framework.
Okay.
So 10 jobs, unless you're creating at least 10 jobs, the process is not worth the time.
That's, I think you repeated median. I think what Karthik said is the minimum is 10 jobs, not the median.
Understood.
Yeah. The median is about 50 jobs, I think 40 to 50 jobs
Right.
of an average project. Obviously the 1,000 job projects get a lot of attention, but the median is about 40 to 50 jobs. So we work with a lot of medium and small businesses.
I know and this is kind of a separate question. I know your presentation talked about high value commodities, which, I think everybody in the room here understands. When you're calculating your rate of reduction, it's all based on tonnage. So if you're sending really heavy things to the landfill, that somewhat unfortunately dilutes your, you need a bunch more plastics than you do, let's say, yard or food waste. Are you focusing at all on any of those heavier items?
We
for
are.
development?
So the construction debris, right, for example, is construction or demolition. Those debris, it's more industrial, yes, but that also adds a lot to the landfill in terms of weight. And we are working, as I said, we cannot work on the policy side, on the collection side, because there is a lot of work there on the policy. But we are working with the companies. For example, Owens Corning is a company that produces shingles and which has a lot of glass and other fillers, glass fibers and fillers, shingles or insulation roofing material and insulation material. So we are working with them to help them see how they can invest in more recyclable products. So that is where we are.
On the construction. So you're not pursuing food waste or yard waste at all?
So we do not have anything right now, but Tim, are you online still? I don't know if Tim is there. He leads our food and agribusiness sector, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Alex.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate the overview of the study. You mentioned that it's not Jobs Ohio's role to advocate for policy changes. I'm sure you mentioned though that there's a need based on the results of your study for significant policy changes. And I'm sure you've looked at other states that have made policy changes. So what were those, or can you share some examples of what states that you feel would be impactful in Ohio?
So we did look at a lot of policies all across the country. There are policies like Colorado, we looked at Oregon, we looked at Tennessee as a comparable state. We looked at all of these states to develop what are a policy map. You can find that in our report. As I said, we don't advocate for either for or against any policy. It is for the legislation to take that view. We are here to only provide it. So there are pros and cons for every policy, right? So I do not want to stand here and represent Jobs Ohio and say that policy is better or will have outsized impact or not. It's not in my wheel to do that at this point.
Other questions?
I think, I think for recycling infrastructure, it's only going to continue to grow in the next 5 years. I mean, you've got a lot more companies coming to Ohio that want more recycled PCR content, right? And not content, but processing, right? We've got a lot going on that is on the horizon for more recyclable material.
Absolutely. We are getting outsized compared to other states. We are getting outsized investments in our states, especially in product manufacturing, which will lead into more, obviously, with more population growth, more product manufacturing, you get more waste generated in the state. So definitely there is a need, and there is investments by Rumpke and others in the state that is going to help this sector.
But this is, let me just add that recycling, kind of like electricity, is sort of a infrastructure play for us. So it's somewhat reactive. In other words, we're not out looking for companies that are doing recycling as the first order of business. We're looking for companies that are going to create jobs in those sectors that we target. And then if they say to us, recycling is a consideration, well, then we're going to help them to deal with that.
Yeah, for example, when Intel came, they asked us, what is your sustainability story for your state, right? We had to be honest and say, we don't have any. At that point, we did not. So that was also one of the, why we wanted to understand what is the state's sustainability story. So this helps us be more educated now.
I'm just curious going forward. You said that you plan to keep these numbers updated and kind of keep a bead on infrastructure development, which sounds great. That's really useful. Just curious how you plan to work with Ohio EPA and their recycling experts going forward.
So we are already working with Ohio EPA. They have a market development program, development grant, which is in size comparatively a little smaller. So when we have opportunities, we do get opportunities. We get hit by all companies from all sizes. And when there is an opportunity which is large enough, we partner to share that information with us. They share with us, and when there is an opportunity where we think it is appropriate for EPS market development grant, we share it with them. So that is right now what we're doing, but we are in constant discussion with them to partner as things progress.
Hey, this is Tim Derrickson. Sorry for chiming in. I'm driving and I had a hard time answering the question earlier that was posed about food and yard waste. We do indeed work with companies that are receiving food and yard waste now. We incentivized a company up in Cleveland. And there might be
Tim, we
others.
can't hear you. I'm sorry, Tim. Could you start over and way louder?
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm driving and it's just not great. But I just wanted the short answer is yes, we do work with companies that are receiving yard and food waste. We recently had a grant offered to a company up in Cleveland in that receiving organic waste, and we want to continue that. But really what drove that project, as well as any others, will be job creation, which indeed, like Karthik and Matt had mentioned, I think they had about 10 or 15 employees that they were hiring as a result. So that was really what was behind it, but we're absolutely looking for opportunities like that.
And we are sorry that we couldn't really catch a lot of that.
I think what he was trying to say is that there are definitely companies in the food sector that he directs that are interested in this topic and talking about it all the time. And we've had a few of the successes in his sector. I think one of them was on your slide, but we can certainly share others.
Oh yeah. For example, Plastilini is a good example.
Yeah.
Where they set up an R&D center for food packaging that's more recyclable.
I think I had heard that you guys were gonna try to participate in these conversations and with our meetings and things like that with the solid waste management plan. So if that's the case, I really appreciate that. And this, I'll be curious to see what else is in that report. Some of those things I've not heard anybody say out loud, like we should put yard waste back in the landfill. I don't necessarily know that I disagree with it or agree with it. But it's kind of an interesting idea, and I like the idea of challenging the status quo. Sometimes that's
to be
important.
learned.
So, if nobody else has any other questions, I think I want to try to get through at least the last piece of the state solid waste management plan. We've heard a lot of pieces that might have an influence on that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we're at. You know, actually, I started to put the notes away thinking that we're gonna boil out. I probably 90 seconds. I think everything we hear today from everybody really echoes what we're seeing in this state plan. And while right now we've had 2 meetings, it feels a little bit like book club where we dove into the chapters, had discussion around it. There's a couple of reoccurring themes that definitely need to occur, and it may require us to go beyond just polishing the existing plan, quite honestly. The biggest thing is we have to get perspective from the solid waste districts. If we're going to serve these folks and help with this plan and work through those solid waste districts, we have to get very familiar with the headwinds and hurdles that they have at a district level, whether it's the accounting practices of accounting for the recycling, having more transparency with industry to get your numbers, where it makes sense, where we're going to have to get boots on the ground and start meeting with these solid waste districts to fully understand the challenges that they go through. Yeah, I feel that we have these top line goals, but we're going to have to build them from the ground up is quite honestly what needs to happen. So as we continue to go through it, we'll be soliciting, looking for input from the different solid waste districts, of course, this board here. And more to come. So ... for now, but it's coming. And I think this round, we may not have all the answers and have the perfect product, but we're going to edge closer and closer to that as we continue to update and move forward. Anything else, Kimberly?
I would just add one more thing. So we're toying around with the idea of not only gathering more information about capabilities and resources available to all of our solid waste districts, but toying with this notion of meeting people where they are, but then having them level up. And how do they level up? And how can we provide assistance and resources for them to do that? And I was really intrigued by Michigan's next cycle concept. So I really want us to maybe tie into that and make it better, of course, because we're Ohio. But yeah, like not superimposing an unrealistic goal, but also not letting people just sort of plug and play on their plans year after year after year. And you have a 1-person solid waste district. I'm sure Jane is a superwoman, but she's 1 person. So how can we get Jane to level up, and how can we assist in that process? Just some concepts at this point, and we're really excited.
I think you guys were the one that was under time a lot the best. I appreciate it. Except for Jeff, he got skipped.
Be brief, be gone.
One thing I will say, Jeff has offered to host MAC at their new. I believe we toured the existing one in the past. Getting very close to operate the new one, so we will be seeing that facility here at one of our, either the May or the July meeting, whichever works out.
So I think July is probably the best time. We'll be up and operational June 3rd. June
So
3rd.
no smell in July.
No smell in July. Very little snow.
Anybody else have any other comments or things for the good of the order, I guess is the statement. With an effort to respect people's time, we are past time. Interesting conversations. Appreciate the help. We'll put together another agenda for next time. I'll try to concentrate on the solid waste management plan review, that kind of thing. We'll do a lot of things. See what we can pull together.
All right.
Time to go.
Move for adjournment.
Second.
There.
I froze, Paul. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, what am I trying to say?
Over there in that corner is supposed to take care of it. Well,
That's how this works.
Who read the one?
Yeah.